Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And welcome to what is a, certainly, compared to weather-wise, it's a lot more damper than it certainly has been in the past. But yes, good morning, good morning, good morning. And, oh my. Oh me, oh my, oh my. What a mess of a debate. What an absolute mess of a debate that was. It's really difficult to look at that and see it as any way, shape, or form it being considered a good debate. Yes, there was a lot of sort of blue on blue. Certainly both Liz and Rishi both attacking each other for their stances on tax. And both, by the way, rubbished by actual economists, as we will probably see over the next couple of weeks. Rishi Sunak says, let's not lower taxes. Let's not do tax cuts yet, but let's do tax cuts in the future. While Liz Truss is just, no, let's do tax cuts now. So, by the way, good morning to, I think it was Prinny Bird. There we go, close the gate. So, good morning to Prinny Bird. Good morning to David. Good morning to Ben. But yes, good morning, good morning, good morning. And like I say, we're doing a review of the the BBC's Your Next Prime Minister. Televised debate to give people that they are being involved in the process. Yeah, to be honest, after the second debate that they had, and I suppose this is the first sort of formal one where it's the first sort of 2-on-2. But after the second debate, you may very well remember the third one was cancelled. Now, why was that third one cancelled? Well, the third one was cancelled because it was an absolute god-awful mess. You had the party very, very clearly showing the splits that were going on in the Tory party. And as we've been saying for a while now, these splits in the Tory party are real. They are going to do the party serious damage and are ultimately going to lead it. You had to do this while I was at work. Well, sorry. Don't worry, you can come back and watch it later if you're going to go to work, or, watch it this afternoon at some point. Like I say, it will always be sort of the channel for you to watch later, so don't worry about it, Bakura. But yeah, the whole idea of that cancelling that third debate was that it was far, far too messy and it was going to damage the sort of image of the Conservative Party. Well, certainly last night, you saw the mess of a debate that took place last night. And oh boy, what a mess. What a mess it was. You had Sunak last night was very, very much on the attack, a lot more animated. Because that's what, after the last two debates, people had said. So it's good to see, that Sunak is at least paying attention to how people perceive him in those polls. But I think last night he was being a lot more aggressive he was not only speaking over Liz Truss, but he was also speaking over the moderator as well. And I don't think he's going to get viewed, or at least being that aggressive, in a favourable light. Liz Truss, or Lizbot, as I suppose we'll have to call her, still probably definitely going to be the next Prime Minister, unfortunately, was definitely perceived after the debate to not have done as well as Rishi Sunak, but it was mainly that argument that broke out between their taxes. And as I just stated earlier at the beginning, again, some of you have come in a bit late, but we'll go over it just quickly. The main topic of debate last night was that of tax cuts. Rishi Sunak saying, we can't do tax cuts now, but we can do tax cuts in the future. With Liz Truss saying, no, we can do tax cuts now and sort of feed off all those quote unquote Brexit benefits. And certainly last night, Liz Truss did put forward what we will probably be seeing in the certainly in the round of her premiership, of anything and everything that the British government does will be seen as a Brexit benefit. So literally, if Liz Truss sneezes, that's a Brexit benefit. So yeah, the other worrying thing was, of course, they had a quick fire round at the end, but we'll go through it more a bit first because we're still not properly gone through it. So that was the big thing. Certainly the discussions on tax. And as I said today, I'm not an economist. But if you have tax cuts, you at some point have to either A, borrow more to absorb those tax cuts, or you have to say that the government is going to defund something. And the question is, what are they going to do to help cover those tax cuts? And ultimately, it is going to be services at some point. So, yeah, as I've said before, austerity on steroids. It's coming. It's coming very, very fast. Bakura. It's a choice between a woman who doesn't know where the door is and a man who doesn't know where Scotland is. Very true. Yeah, jam tomorrow tax cuts. Yeah, that was one of the phrases that was used. Then the Tory party now seems to be going the same direction as the country, which is being ruined by the Tory party. Yeah, the Tories are indeed ruining their own party at this point. Very true. Mark R. Too much of the blue on blue quote action. Surprised they didn't debate. Surprised that actually they did the debate. Quote Dewar Johnson. Did Johnson? Oh, hang on. It's difficult. It's difficult to read and talk at the same time. The debate. Dewar Johnson and not debate. Shall be interviewed instead. Yeah. Yeah, quick fire round. Yes, they did a quick fire round right at the end, which was very worrying because one of the things that they wanted to do was that they wanted to put stopping strike actions on what they dubbed as essential industries. And this is really worrying because essentially anything could be deemed as an essential industry, So that could be very, very much used as a ploy to basically stop all strike action in the country. And of course, it was very, very much aimed at the RMT, But it does feel like, you've had Mick Lynch, and I can't remember the other guy's name, who have been doing fantastic interviews, certainly during when these strikes have been on and prior to them, where they've been, going, hey, look, there's actually all this money in our industry, but none of it is going to the people who need paying. So, so long as they keep on doing these really good interviews, I don't think there's going to be any serious need to do that. Are the police allowed to strike? They're not here. They are and they aren't. Over here, the police are allowed to strike in what's known as a minimal capacity. So if the police go on strike, there has to be sort of at least enough number of people to be able to sort of cover essentially the day roster, I think it is, or something like that it's called. So yeah, it's one of those odd things that they've got. So essentially the police can strike, but they've got to essentially do it on their time off. So yeah, go figure on that one. And of course, because we've had such massive cuts to the police, it's probably been made even harder for them to actually do that now. So you are probably right at the moment. They probably can't if they wanted to. John, it was like Sauron and Sheeran battling it out for the ruler of Mordor. Yeah, exactly. Oh, hello, where did you come from? Well, here I am, Crowban. So, yeah, whenever there's a debate, look to the sky and you'll see me there. But the other thing that was I definitely wanted to talk about was the levelling up, because both Rishi Sunak... Oh, David, good morning to you. Both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss last night, because it was in, where was it? Stoke-on-Trent, I want to say it was Stoke-on-Trent. I can't remember if it was now, or at least it was somewhere down the Midlands. It wasn't a, quote, red wall seat, as it, gets described, but it was traditionally a very, very Labour area. And of course it went Tory sort of for the first time. It'll be very, very interesting see if it actually stays that way. I don't think it will stand a chance. Because one of the things that Rishi Sunak said was that, he'd been giving all this money to sort of Stoke to get their town centre redone. And for those residents up in Yorkshire, will probably know that Barnsley's just had a massive renovation of our town centre. Now, while that is good, and so sort of, it gussies up the town centre a bit, makes it look, puts a new slap of paint on, doesn't actually mean that anything good is happening economically to the town. So, if you cannot attract these new shops or new businesses into the town centre, or at least even keep them open in the town centre, then you've got a serious problem. And all that is, again, really happening is that the Tories are once again trying to cover up, their own damage, essentially with a lick of paint. So yes, while I agree, with a lot of people, it's nice to have a new sort of town centre, nice for it to look good. But what does that really do for a town? Yes, you get, a couple of new shops, etc., but what's it really going to add? It's not really fulfilling the promise to level up. And to be honest, not a lot of people, especially in the north, are actually buying that these new sort of paint jobs that they're getting from these Stoke, that was it. Not a lot of people in the area, or at least in the north, they promised to sort of level up, are actually buying what the Tories are selling on levelling up. And it just goes to show you that they have not got a clue. They actually generally haven't got a clue. In fact, Keir Starmer, of all people, came out yesterday and had more of a plan. Now, of course, he didn't actually come out and lay out a full manifesto, but at least we've got an idea of what's going to be in it. And of course, he came up with the idea, or basically, which is very true, of look, to help solve this levelling up problem, what we're going to have is more devolution. So that probably means more metro mayors to help with the levelling up fund, because each individual area of the country has its own in particular problems. Stoke, very, very different to that of Barnsley. So it's going to have its own economical challenges. So you can't just deploy a one-size-fits-all solution and expect these challenges to be faced. And one thing I was quite happy about was they had I think it was their BBC political editor, asked the question of, this levelling up idea that you've been talking about, when we look at other countries, we see billions of pounds spent, not just in this very much temporary flurry, which is what the Conservatives have done. And they haven't even spent billions. They've spent sort of, a drop in the bucket of what's really needed to help sort these areas out. And they're hoping that that'll be enough and that they can just come back and go, oh, see, it was all done and dusted. That's what they're hoping for. And he went, look, you look at these other countries that have done something very similar. They're not only spending, billions and billions of pounds investing in these areas, investing in these left behind regions, but they're doing it over a long period. And everything that sort of Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss said in that section was all short term. Rishi Sunak, of course, wants to build more free ports because, somehow free ports are going to be the answer and the solution to all our problems. No, we did this before in the 80s, and I wish someone would bring this up. I really wish someone would bring this up, sort of to Rishi Sunak. Why does he think free ports are going to work? Regenerate. Oh, good morning, all. I assume you didn't miss much. No, you didn't miss much. You missed a bit of blue on blue. And to be honest, there was no policy talked about last night, which was the big sort of disappointment. So think of that as the TDLR, should we say, of the talks, if you missed them. We've done this song and dance before with free ports. Margaret Thatcher in the 80s opened up 12 free ports throughout the country, and only 2 actually succeeded. So for those of you who don't know, the first one that succeeded was one on the Isle of Dogs down in London, which basically got London City Airport built. And that was, some sort of, considered to be quite a success. The other one, and this is the depth of of why this needs to be brought up to Rishi Sunak. The other one that succeeded was up in Sunderland. Why did it succeed? Because we were in, at that moment, the European Economic Area, and Japan came and opened up a factory. You might remember its name. We've talked about it quite a bit on this channel. It was Nissan. So Nissan came to the UK because that was its gateway to Europe. And it used the free port to sort of build that. And of course, now we're no longer in there. We've had to have, oh, hang on, those of you who want the ponies. There you go. So that only succeeded because they managed to get Nissan over there. So the big question is how are these free ports, which when you look at them economically, from every single point of view, every single expert comes out and says, look, these free ports, these free tax zones that you're asking to make have historically proved they do not work. Oh, they were Datsun before. Oh yes, and of course we've also got to remember it's not just Nissan up there, it's also Renault. And Renault, you may remember, I think the French government has like a 20-30% share in the country, in Renault, don't they? Something like that. They've got like quite a controlling interest. So be interesting to see if, you know, when this trade war eventually happens, France just pulls them out. So are they not free ports anymore? No, those all those free ports closed down. In fact, David Cameron actually closed down the last free port in 2012 because they were not considered to be an economical success. They were not considered to be an economic advantage to the country. So we've had free ports when we were in the EU. And yes, the EU does allow countries to open free ports, to set up these types of things. But here's the thing. Most of these free ports, they've ended up not working, or after a very short period of time, proved to be something what's more of, well, not really a donut effect, showing my GCSE geography at play there. Not really a not really an economical benefit. Because what a lot of these businesses have ended up doing was they would just move their business to be inside the free port. So it's not really creating new jobs. It's more businesses just moving their businesses inside the free port just to take advantage of that. And that's what we're going to see. These free ports are not going to work. They're going to cause a lot of harm to our economy, and they're going to all fail, essentially, by not providing any serious economic benefit. And that's one thing that I would hope Labour would go on the attack on, because they certainly need to do an attack on these on the free ports, because they are not going to be economically good whatsoever. Fatgasm Wiki. Several free ports operated throughout the United Kingdom. However, by 2012, the Conservative Labour government decided not to renew their licenses. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Free ports did not work. Now, there are arguments for free ports, but the thing is, the Conservatives take them from very much the libertarian right-wing perspective of, we've got to have these areas where essentially no rules, no regulations apply, and that's how these are all going to work. So, yeah, as always, it's really poor, thought out, economic ideas that have proven not to work in the past, but they're going to do them again because as we've always said, this particular government indeed, and this Tory party as it is at the moment in time, are obsessed with ideology. And that was very, very much on display last night as well. Both, by the way, both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss in the quickfire round both said that the chaos at Dover was not being caused by Brexit, when that's not true. That's not true at all. The chaos at Dover is being caused exactly by Brexit. And it's hilarious whenever we get the Brexiteers going, oh, we knew what we voted for. And then they're now complaining about a consequence of Brexit. This is going to happen every year now, every year. And you're probably going to get less tourism through those ports, through those channels. I wonder if environmental standards will be lowered in free ports. Yes, they indeed will be. That will not be a surprise. You know, that one of the things that, you know, they're trying to praise one of the free ports for is, oh yes, one of them is, you know, setting up a carbon capture program. So, which, okay. Oh, Jack Lesser, beer money, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Thank you very much, Jack. I will definitely get myself a beer. Probably not now because it's, you know, 8 o'clock in the morning. It's a bit too early to drink. But thank you very much anyway. So yeah, this is one of those types of situations where I would certainly hope in the future that Labour does go on the attack on these things and start calling it out. Because here's the thing, you can actually really embarrass these Conservative MPs by saying, oh, but you told us what we were voting for, or at least you knew what you were voting for, so why are you complaining about a consequence you wanted? You know, and the thing is, that it's obviously you've got to be careful that you don't fall into the Brexit trap, because that's what they will want to do. They'll go, oh, you Ramona, you, how dare you bring up, you know, the disadvantages of Brexit. In fact, that was one thing that also came up from last night's debate. Rishi Sunak brought up the fact that Liz Truss was part of course, the Remain campaign. And Liz Truss now basically saying she's a full-blown Brexiteer, because even though most of what she said back during the Remain campaign was right, and oh boy, oh boy, are people going to be searching the internet for videos of Liz Truss talking about her when she was a Remainer, talking about how good it was to remain inside the EU, and contrasting that with what she's saying now, which tends to be quite false. I mean, she was more accurate and truthful when she was a Remainer than she was as a Brexiteer, which, again, bizarre times we live in. So, yeah, so that was quite a bizarre exchange, certainly. You know, Liz Truss going full in on Brexit because, well, ultimately she's being backed by the ERG. And of course, when you're being backed by the ERG, you know, you've got to be a full Brexiteer. Oh, it's midnight here on the West Coast. Well, thank you for staying up, Jack. Yeah. Oh, Dante, good morning. Hello to you, or good morning, should we say in this case? So, yeah. Ultimately, Brexit will hoist the Conservative Party by its own petard. Ultimately, always will do. that's what it's destined to do. And you've got Liz Truss again on stage talking about, oh yes, we're going to unlock all these Brexit benefits. I would have loved one of the guys on the BBC stage to go, what do you actually mean by these Brexit benefits? Can you actually expand on that? Because you talk about them, but you never exactly say what they are. And that would have been probably a very revealing question, because we all know what the answer would be. It's regulations. And it's those regulations, such as workers' rights, the ability to strike, etc., that they are going after. They do not like the fact that the RMT has been getting such a good traction on striking. And that's why, certainly in that that free fire round, they are going to go after people's ability to strike. And what's worrying is they labeled it as, quote, critical industry. But what is a critical industry? And I think you will see that just be expanded upon. You've also had Kurzek Tang a couple of days ago sign in to sign up to the idea that he wants businesses, whenever someone goes on strike, an organization goes on strike, they can bring in agency workers, which, scab labor. Yeah, that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea at all. And again, something that Labour should be taking advantage of, expanding workers' rights and giving unions more power, or at least giving more power back to the unions. And we've seen Ed Miliband talk about that before. So that will be again a very, very good attack on Labour, on the Conservatives by Labour, if they can do that. And like I say, one thing that you've got to laugh at here is the Conservatives have been in power that long. They are now having to deal with all these economical problems that they themselves have caused, that have been a direct result of their policies. You once again had Liz Truss last night saying how in her area she felt that her education, at least the children in her area, had been let down by the education. And again, that's laughable, because the entire time Liz Truss was at school, it was under a Conservative government. That is going to be an absolutely amazing win for Labour if Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister. Because Liz Truss inadvertently is basically saying that the best time for education in this country was under Tony Blair's Labour government. And she is true. If you look at sort of educational attainment, you look at the scores, the grades, how many people went to sort of university, and it's very, very true. And I am glad to see that, again, Starmer said in that speech, he did want Labour to do a really good focus on education. Because I'm really worried about it, to be honest. We are going to sleepwalk into a education crisis. I really do think we are. You've got not only a problem in hiring new teachers, but you've also got a problem. Oh, hang on. Got a bit of a blockage, I bet. Bit of a blockage. See if we can't move them. Have to be very gentle with them. Come on now. So overall, this will prove, I think, to be their undoing. Oh no, it's not a pony jam. It's a cow jam. It's very, very much a cow jam. And like I say, I don't want to be behind one of those guys if one of them decides to do a runner along the path here. So I'm just going to leave them where they are. We'll just quickly motor on, because I do not want to be on this very small, narrow path if one of them decides to come running down it. So, yeah, overall, this is an entire education crisis, and the fact of we have had crashing, educational stuff is been on their disaster. That man should go to London Underground to find the horses. Well, actually, speaking of the London Underground, talking infrastructure, rail, I think, and HS2 is going to be a massive blow to the next Prime Minister, to whoever it would be, probably Liz Truss, because this is a massive infrastructure project that has now been continuously delayed. And we need new infrastructure in this country, not just, the big HS2. We need things like a Crossrail for the North, which also got cancelled. Oh. We need that type of serious infrastructure projects that are going to provide jobs, investment, and be a real benefit, to people's lives. And HS2, as we've brought up before, is just a small part of that plan. And rail in particular, we are going to have to massively increase it. I mean, I'm so jealous of the fact that there's two articles I've read recently about high-speed rail, and I'm like, I wish Labour would come out massively in favour of this, because I think this would be a good position for them. You have just a recent study about the high-speed rail in Italy. And their high-speed rail that they built, massively beneficial to their country, massively decreased the use of internal flights. And of course, a train is far, far more green than using a plane. So the fact that it has done that, the fact that it has been such a massive increase to Italy's, infrastructure, the ability to be able to do that is fantastic. And then you've got over in America, part of the Green New Deal that they want to do. They're also talking about, reducing internal flights by building high-speed rail. So, the answer's there. And I think we've really got to get to grips with what's going on. Why are all these delays happening? And what's stopping the movement of all this? And of course, we do have a Minister for Transport in, currently it's Grant Shapps. Actually, is he even still the minister anymore. I can't even remember. That many people have come and go in such a short time. But yeah, no talk about infrastructure last night. Yeah, you are true there. Yeah. And it would be a massive, massive opportunity for Labour to really, really unleash sort of the power of rail. Jim, the want steam trains back, yeah. I mean, there's so much opportunity and so much wasted potential in the fact that you've had a government who have talked a big game about levelling up within their own white paper that they released, and then have basically not followed through on a single one of its promises. Many pilot and other worker strikers in multiple countries recently over poor working conditions in multiple airlines. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. High-speed rail, LOL, we'll finish Trump's wall first. So, yeah, we've gotten very off topic. But to be honest, you want the TDLR, the Tory debate? Well, here it is. Basically, Liz and Rishi Sunak went on the attack against each other last night. It didn't look good, like optically, for them to do that, which, to be honest, is quite good for us. And then, of course, the big one was that we want to hear them talk about policy, not these ideas. So yes, you're going to do a tax cut. Okay. But what exactly? Oh, corporation tax. Well, how much are you going to cut it by? You know, these are the actual things we want to hear about. Not these, just, we've got these ideas, but they're not fully fleshed out. And certainly when you know, Labour coming out with a good policies last night, like more devolution, more having a central industrial strategy policy unit, which would be fantastic, because then that is what can help define and decide the direction of the industrial strategy for the country to take. That is a really good idea, you know. So, yeah. Again, and people will say that Labour have no policies, but yes, you've just had Keir Starmer come out and do an entire speech about what he would help to do to grow the economy. And yes, some of them are very, very good ideas, like the Economic Strategy Unit Council, fantastic idea. More devolution with sort of more targeted economic focus, because you can't roll out a one-size-fits-all standard, because, you know, the problems of like Lancashire economically are completely different from those that Yorkshire faces, or even sort of South Yorkshire versus North Yorkshire, you know. So you've got to have very targeted economic plans when you look at these regions. So that's very good. And of course, yeah, blue on blue, why what's not to love. Oh, thank you very much, Cathal OG. More beer money. Can the loser expect a cabinet position? That's a very big question. I doubt it. I very, very much doubt the loser will get a cabinet position. I think you'll see people like Penny Mordaunt, Kimi Badnoch, and of course Suella Braverman certainly be offered cabinet positions, but Rishi having a position in Liz's cabinet, I don't think so. I do not think so at all. Because very much so, in that first round, all the cabinet positions will have already been offered for support to get people on side. So very, very much so, they'll be all on that. To the Codex, do you reckon Starmer now doesn't want to nationalise rail and water? Again, the nationalisation question is quite difficult because, again, economically, there are good arguments for it. There are absolutely good arguments and reasons why we should sort of nationalise things like rail and water. And I spoke to Gareth. You remember when we had Gareth Dennis on a couple of weeks ago? Again, if you didn't watch that, certainly do watch that, because, as he said, even if we do nationalise the rail, it's not a guarantee to bring, rail prices down. Yes, the government could do things like Germany's offering, like Spain's offering, the €9 ticket, I think is in Germany, and Spain is doing like some free travel for like short to medium trips, stuff like that. So yeah, the government can offer stuff like that if it is nationalised, which will be good. But overall, there is the question of it probably won't bring prices down. Now, of course, it will stop all the profits that we have from our rail industry going to the investors, which will be good, and all that investment can be put back into things like HS2, etc., etc. So again, it's good economically, but, and this is the big but, the second you talk about nationalisation, the more you worry sort of people who were in the centre who would vote Labour, but because Starmer is talking some, to quote the Daily Mail, socialist nonsense, that unfortunately runs them into the arms of the Conservatives. And as I've said multiple times before, Labour at the moment, under our voting system, has to be a broad church. So what I would like to see is Starmer not fully commit to sort of nationalisation of everything, but just one thing. And rail would be a fantastic way to do it. If he can commit just to that one thing, nationalisation of rail, first of all, it will get more lefties on board. Certainly, there's a lot of people in the centre who, if Starmer's just nationalising that one thing, they'd be quite fine with it. And again, if Starmer can show that nationalisation can work, that he can improve like the quality of the rail industry, then this strengthens even more the argument for nationalising other sectors. And maybe Starmer has to find a way of, quote, saying, what's the best way to put this? He has to be able to say that he's going to nationalise the rail industry, but not by saying he's going to, not, shall we say, using that word, that phrase. I think if he could sort of rephrase it, like saying he's going to, what's good marketing lingo for this? Certainly not using the word nationalisation, but using a different word. Publicisation, maybe. I don't know. You get what I'm trying to go for, I think. But yeah. Certainly not going for everything at once. I think going after one thing, and rail in particular, is very, very popular to be renationalised. So I think that could work. And if he can prove, again, that nationalisation works and that this is a good thing, then the argument can be rolled out and expanded to other things like energy, water, etc., etc. So I do think eventually that will be a good idea. But you have to prove to the British public, when, remember, we have had years of Tory propaganda telling us how much of a failure nationalised industries were. You've got to do a lot of activity to fight back against that. A lot of stuff. So it's going to be very, very hard. But I do not think it's impossible that Starmer might do that. But I think he has to go after that one thing. And I think that one thing has to be the rail industry. And I think, again, as we said, if he can prove that works, then that argument can be expanded out to other areas as well. Oh, so, yep. Yeah, Starmer needs to man up for public ownership. Yeah, very true. And I think if he does man up to that one thing, that will be certainly very good. So yeah, as always, thank you very much for joining me for this review. Like I say, we got off very quickly off topic, but like I say, the TDLR, lots of blue on blue, not a single word of actual policy. Ideas were put forward, but no ideas of what actual those physical forms of those ideas will take. And of course, still at this moment in time, I haven't seen any polls to see if positions have changed, but I definitely still suspect that Liz Truss still very much in the lead. So, as always, thank you very much for joining me today on this post-debate review. Hope you've enjoyed it yourselves. Like I say, on Wednesday we've got a live stream coming up, as always, and of course on Saturday we will have the Good Morning Walk, as always, and of course we'll see you all next time then.